What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist here with
Gersh1.
And guess what? We're back at it again, answering more questions from you guys in another episode of For the Greater.
This is a video series where we answer the questions left by you, the viewer. If you have a question for us, comment down below. Put a question in front of your question because we get to those questions first. And today's question, or we also have a super thanks. So if you guys want to support the channel, you can hit us up with a super thanks. Thank you so much. We will answer that question and make it a thumbnail question in the next episode. This question is there anything better than a Space Marine?
Right. So Space Marines are the poster boys of Warhammer 40K. They're essentially faster, tougher, stronger, smarter. Overall, anything you could think a human is, Space Marines are that times 10.
Also, let's explain that in 40K, Space Marines act differently than in 30K. So if you're someone who reads the lore and are used to the Horus Heresy novels, Space Marines operate as basically Imperial Guard in 40K.
Right.
Where, for example, all of the pacifications that occurred during the Great Crusade, it was entire companies of Space Marines going out and fighting at company strength. That's why even in 30K, the actual tabletop game, you're dealing with Space Marine units that are about like 20 men. Whereas in 40K, you're only dealing with like units of 5 or 10 or that kind of thing. And that's because 40K Space Marines are elite warriors. They are the ones that are sent in to do very unique tasks. They're not there to set up battlefronts kind of thing.
Right. If you've ever played the Space Marine game, notice that it's not a whole chapter of Space Marines fighting. You've got the Imperial Guard there, but you have very few Space Marines assisting the Imperial Guard. They're so few and far between, and a galaxy so vast that they can't have the numbers to do the things that like the Imperial Guard can do.
Yep. So when you look at it from the perspective of humanity and you say, well, is there anything better than these elite warriors in 40K? Sometimes people go to like, well, there's the Khazarkin, there are the Tempestus Scions, there's the Sisters of Battle, that kind of thing. And yes, those are elite units, but the capacity for them to fulfill any type of role on the battlefield is limited. Whereas Space Marines are elite units, but they can fulfill many roles.
Yeah, definitely. If you go chapter by chapter, the Space Marines have their own roles as being like, what's that one? Like guerrilla warfare, shock tactics. Maybe you just need to go in quickly, so you call in the White Scars, or you need to get stuck in, so you call the Iron Hands.
Yep. So yeah, when it comes to the Imperium, it is like the Tempestus Scions. There is nothing more elite than the Space Marines, even though the Tempestus Scions, Sisters, and all these kind of elite units do exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you could go out on a limb and even say, well, what about the Custodes? And it's like, yes, the Custodes are a faster, stronger, tougher Space Marine, but they're not Space Marines, and that's not their role.
Yeah, because that's my gripe.
That's not their role.
Yeah, the Adeptus Custodes I don't feel should have been a standalone faction at all ever. They should have stayed within the the Hands of the Inquisition or the Imperial something or another. Because in 5th edition, that's what they were. They were
Talons of the Emperor.
Yeah, they were part of the Inquisition, the Sisters of Battle. They were not a standalone unit because within the lore, they're not supposed to. They're the bodyguards of the Emperor of Mankind. They stood next to him when they were fighting during the Great Crusade. Yes, they operate on Terra. Yes, they have the Legion of 300 that protects the Golden Throne, and they have more that go out and capture those like...
any threat or like the prisoners that escaped underneath the Himalayan mountain jail cells.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely they're not supposed to be this force akin to the Space Marines. They're supposed to be the elite guard of the Emperor.
Yeah, but and that's the thing. Like they are even more specific than the Space Marines. It's the same problem with the Tempestus Scions and all that kind of stuff. They're not as they're really good at specific things, but overall, I think a Space Marine just has the capacity to do so much more.
Yeah, think of it in our terms of like, well, you have the Marines, and then you have the Navy SEALs.
Right, exactly.
You don't have a whole regiment of Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
You have a whole regiment of Marines. So think of it in those terms.
Yeah, so then Imperial Guard are Army, Space Marines are Marines, Navy SEALs are Adeptus Custodes.
There you go.
Yeah. But yeah, it's good that we clarified that. Now, when it comes to like the other factions, like is there anything stronger than a Space Marine? For the orcs, the equivalent would probably be the elite knob units. For the Necrons, it would be the ones that they always fucking wreck when we play on the tabletop. The ones with the shield and the spears.
Oh, the Blade Guard.
Yeah, Blade Guard.
I think that's what they're called.
Yeah. When you look at canoptic things, wouldn't it be the Wraiths?
The Wraith. Wouldn't Wraiths be like the fast attack? I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
I don't know if they were that in this edition, but I remember them being really fast.
Yeah.
I was going to say the Immortals, because you have like the Necron Warriors, and then you have the Immortals that are a little bit better. But I think the Blade Guard would be pretty much Space Marines.
More well-rounded than like the specific Wraiths or the other ones, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to Eldar, that's a trickier one, right?
Yeah, because like you have Guardians, which aren't fighters at all. It's just the populace that like, hey, we don't have enough people, so you regular dudes got to step in here and fight.
I think that they probably wouldn't have a Space Marine equivalent because even when you look at like the elites, like the Scorpion Squad,
The Howling Banshees.
they're super specific to a point where like almost like the Tempesticians, the Sisters of Battle, the Sisters of Silent, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And then anything other than that would just be like HQs, and yeah, it doesn't really work.
Yeah, and then the Phoenix Lords would basically be Primarchs.
At that point, yeah.
And then when you move on over to Tyranids, that elite thing would be the Tyranid Guard. So
Right, because that's what the Tyranids ate the Space Marines, and that's what pooped out.
yeah, basically they
Yeah.
took the genetic makeup of the Space Marines and said, well, this is what we're gonna do to counter or to mimic.
So next up is the Tau, and I don't think they have anything close, unless you're talking about battle suits.
Yeah, but even then, I think that they're just really like the Tau are too young.
Right, they're the youngest superpower in the galaxy, and yeah, they don't really have anything to combat Space Marines, really.
Yeah, but that's the gist of it. That's kind of like how the Space Marines are broken up. That's why they are so elite, because they're special within the Imperium and other factions and stuff like that. Good question. Next one.
This one is by Trazian. How does the Imperium sustain the high birth rate it needs, since they sacrifice so many of their people, and they get attacked by Xenos, the Witch, the Heretic, etc.?
Well, it turns out that humans like to fuck, and that's probably the best way. Like, what is it, 9 months? Every 9 months, a woman can give birth to more kids. However, there have been situations where even with trillions of inhabitants in one hive city, it's not enough to fill the needs of the Imperial war machine. So things like the Death Corps Krieg turn to cloning.
That's right, and that's why we also have machines that aid. Not just that, but like rogue traders can recruit from different species. So there's different ways to kind of combat this like insurmountable amount of bodies that the Imperium needs. And it's crazy like to think that you could have a hive world with trillions of people, but it's like, how the hell can they produce that much food? And then think of all the waste. So it's got to be these like marvels of engineering in order to house, feed, and sustain that many people in a hive world.
And when you start listening to the lore, or when you start diving deeper into the lore of like, besides just like the battles of 40K, you start to see that. I think one of my eye-opening moments when it came to lore was the beginning of the Wrath and Glory described kind of scenario that you're given as a DM, because it's like a narrative thing. Is you send your unit into basically a graveyard world or a tomb world that's not a Necron tomb world. So these trillions and trillions of people that died, they want to be buried because they're human, so they actually designate an entire planet dedicated to tombs. So it's like mausoleums, like graveyards everywhere. And that's just how like massive the Imperium is, of just like an entire planet dedicated to the dead. And I think that kind of concept is so cool.
Yeah, and there's a lot of worlds like that, focusing on different aspects of human life and death. And I think that's one of the most overlooked yet badass things about 40K.
Yeah. Next question comes from Austin Palmer. Do you think they will ever have the 2 missing Primarch chapters return?
Nah, they're gonna keep it OG and just give us a little bit of like inklings of lore here and there. But I think, like, if they did, I feel like there's too many different aspects of the Primarchs already represented that there's got to be some type of overlap, and I don't want that at all.
Yeah, because you feel it already. Like Iron Hands and Imperial Fists.
Iron Hands, Iron Warriors.
Yeah. So it's difficult. That like they seem very like Gilliman and Rogaldorn seem like the same guy kind of.
Yeah.
Almost.
So I think it's interesting to just keep it, unknown, and have like people kind of create and fan like chapters, fan legions like that, so we could see our, I guess, personality, our thoughts, our themes represented via the Lost Primarchs.
Correct. I have one from the big one. On July 4th, I served up all the hood specialties like grilled cow dung, goat sausage, and chicken feet. What meals with all the fixings do you guys eat to celebrate Independence Day?
I'll just keep it, with the same old hamburger and hot dog.
Yeah, I think that's pretty standard. Everybody cooks out on that day. And chicken feet sound delicious, especially if they're pickled with a bunch of hot sauce. There's nothing more American than chicken feet. Pickled chicken feet.
I've never had chicken feet. What about pig's feet?
Also really good with some hot sauce. It has to be the right type of vinegar, but yeah. Eric9 says, we sleeping on super things? We are sleeping on super things questions again. If we ignored one of your super things, we're sorry. But if you guys aren't, or if you guys, I guess that's what he means, right?
Yeah. Because the super thanks you're talking about is one that we've already answered. So if you didn't see it in the video that was posted, it's probably going to come out in the following video or the video after that. Because we do these recordings in groups of like 3 videos. So just kind of give it a little bit of time and it'll come out.
Yes. And thank you so much for the super thanks. And those were the questions for today. If you guys have more questions for us, please comment down below. We will talk tomorrow.
That's right. It's been the Sound Alchemist here with
Gershwan.
And we'll see you then.
Always used to put my freedom first in any